And a pleasant good day to you. The time is approximately 10 minutes moving away from the 10 o'clock hour. And without delay, I'll take you right to our host for this program. Let, let him let you hear his voice and introduce whatever he will be expounding on today. Good day to you, Mr. Africa.
Hi, good morning, Quint, and good morning to the radio listeners and viewers out there in Radio Land. I wish to say good morning to Mrs. Henry and others. So many names to call, but I do like to greet Mrs. Henry, an elder that I admire and respect over the years. And so I say, Grand Rising, good morning, greetings to you, Mrs. Henry, and others. Those who are listening via radio and those who are viewing by the various media houses that give us the opportunity, the technology, so that we can be close in a global system together. Like as always, I'm going to introduce 3 topics for today, but before I do so, I wish to start the way I start with the regular mantra of what our objective is.
Letter from King Leopold II of Belgium to colonial missionaries, 1883. Part 1. Reverends, fathers, and dear compatriots, the task that is given to fulfill is very delicate and requires much tact. You will go certainly to evangelize, but your evangelization must inspire above all Belgium interests. Your principal objective in the Congo is never to teach the niggers to know God, this they know already. They speak and submit to a Mungu, one Zambi, one Zakamba, and what else I don't know. They know that to kill, to sleep with someone else's wife, to lie and to insult is bad. You are not going to teach them what they know already. Your essential role is to facilitate the task of administrators and industrials, which means you will go to interpret the gospel in the way it will be the best to protect your interests. For these things, you have to keep watch on disinteresting our savages from the richness that is plenty in their underground to avoid them get interested in it, and make you murderous and dream one day of overthrowing you.
As it said, our objective here, that we come and we greet the general public in the fear of the Most High, the Almighty, whom some would call God, in the various forms, the various observations, as nations develop and they admire and they pay homage to God in their own lenses. We has been given a European lens to look at God in all of the fabrics of the Europeans, and we say no. We will admire, and we, as it says, our objective here is to remember, not just a recollection of the mind, but putting back pieces from a fragmented, a broken people in which we must admit that we were broken, we was dispersed, we were scattered, and to remember is to reassembling what was before. We were introduced to some strange aspect of our cultural norms and our cultural way of life. Why should we compromise and be complicit of the way we are, the way we were thousands of years prior to colonization? So this is our objective, is to approach the general public in the fear of God when we present what we wish to present. Today I wish to present 3 topics for discussions, and I will name them. One is very precarious one, and we are in a system of 365 days, and we have a 7-day week system. But from a biblical perspective, you will say, well, okay, in Genesis it says God created everything in 6 days, and then he rested, or she rested on the 7th day. And so that 7th day came in as a rest day, but nonetheless, it was an overall total 7 days. But observation from a neurological perspective in terms of numbers, the numerology entails not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or not just 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 10 numerological characters that makes the combination of all mathematical equations, however way the combinations might be. But there are 3 that is missing in the scheme of things when it comes to the creation. Because if Genesis says that, oh, God created all things in 6 days, and then in the 7th day he rested, or she rested, where did those other 3 mathematical characters, when did they came into play? When did they came into our scheme of things? In my observation, and according to our elders, these 3 missing numerological characters, like 7, 8, or 9, or 0, 1, and 2, and so forth, had to be a part of the overall time when things unfold from the very beginning of time, what we call Zeptepi. And so there are 3 missing characters that we need to investigate, interrogate, and dispense. Now, these 3 characters are shrouded in what we call societies of secret. We are a society of secret because we hold dear to a lot of mysteries. But there were other secret societies, and there's a difference with a society of secret and secret societies. Secret societies are those that you have heard of, the lodges, the Freemasons and the different lodges and the lodges. And one of those things, you will see the numerological play. The 3rd degree or the 33rd degree. And you will see like a triangle. And sometimes when we say things, we say it 3 times. And then the old way of cooking, you will cook on a 3 firestone. And then in religious areas, you will see how the 3 plays a significant role. In the domain of Christianity, they will say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And all of these nuances within the 3 and the preservations, I can go further. Then you can see the vertebrae of the back of the human being. It consists of 33 bones, and then it is said that the Christ or Jesus or Yesu died at the age of 33, and the pattern continues where it goes way back. This morning I want to really delve a little deeper into that aspect and present 2 other aspects to the fore. One of the other 2 aspects is small religious setting, and why I am not subscribing to Christianity, because of even what the mantra said earlier. And also I want to touch on a cultural aspect which was recently held at the halftime Super Bowl with the performance of Bad Bunny and the significance, symbolism. Even our flag was being displayed. It stood out. There were other flags, but our flags was being displayed. And it brought a sense of pride to us in the Caribbean, because here is this guy using music, using an art form to convey why we should unite in the Caribbean, as we are up against some adversarial forces that tend to really want to erode our ways of life and segment us, have us disunite in terms of how they could really use the divide and rule conquer amongst ourselves, where even at the high level of our leadership, we are seeing it, and it does not spell good for us in terms of things that we need to accomplish. The farmers was here earlier, speaking of the governmental aspect of assistance to the farmers so that we can produce more, so that we can have food as our security to sustain our lives in the Caribbean. So those are some of the things that I wish to bring to the fore this morning in a robust discussion. Of course, the lines will be open up for others to call in and weigh in on these matters. But the 3 missing days of creation is pivotal and upfront to the discussion, but we will digress and dovetail into other matters of importance as well.
Yeah, as you spoke about Bad Bunny, like I said earlier this morning, I didn't know anything about him, I really didn't. I only knew about him after, well, I think I saw some articles that he would be on the Super Bowl, but I didn't know anything about him, and knowing that he was more speaking Spanish and so forth, I didn't really peruse him. But after the Super Bowl, because of what I was hearing, in terms of his representation, I felt like, okay, I have to see this for myself, scrutinize it, and find out what it's all about. And I was impressed because I know, being a student of history, Puerto Rico's history. So I'm going to play a clip now that this clip is a perfect example. It shows how the U.S. uses countries for its own advantage and at the same time keeps the country as backward as it possibly can. The U.S. is not really a friend of anyone. No matter how you might feel that you're benefiting, if the U.S. gives you something, they're going to get 10 times out of it than what you got, 50 times, 100 times more than what you got. This is no surprise, because remember that when the British came here and there was fight in the Caribbean region as to who would be the main benefactor of the exploitation of our foreparents by way of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, remember that Britain wound up the big superpower structure. And remember that the United States fought for independence from Britain. So it's no surprise to see that what Britain practiced and what the other European countries practice, we're seeing it happening today. What is surprising, though, is that they have the unmitigated gall to keep digging us in an open wound and feel that we're always going to crumble and cry and we're not going to find some way of defending ourselves and surviving. Our foreparents found ways to do that, and we must in turn find ways. So I'm going to play this clip for you, and I want you to listen keenly because it gives you a synopsis history of why Bad Bunny did the presentation that he did, because he's aware, he's a young person who's aware of his history. And that is the sad position we find ourselves as a Caribbean black people. We don't care about our history. You rather have young people singing songs that they rather be rich and stupid than be what? They rather be rich and stupid than be wise and poor. You understand? But they don't understand with wisdom, you're not going to really be poor, because wisdom itself is an enrichment. It is an enlightenment. And because of that enlightenment, you can then go on to get other things because you are wise, you are educated. But when you have riches and you're stupid or you're dumb, that is why you do the things that you do. You get the riches and it comes today and it's gone. You have the bling bling and you're all up and down with all the women, and then long before you reach your middle age, you're destitute, you're impoverished, you don't have anything. Okay, so listen to this clip.
Puerto Rico is part of the United States, but it often doesn't really feel like it, mostly because while the rest of the country has prospered, Puerto Rico has stalled out completely. And while it might seem like just a run of bad luck, the reality is that the very country that controls Puerto Rico, the United States, is also the one that is strangling it. To understand why Puerto Rico is in the position it is today, we first have to understand where it actually is. Because when you look at a map of the United States, Puerto Rico usually isn't there. Or if it is, it's floating in a box off the coast of Florida, completely out of of scale and context. But in reality, Puerto Rico is the easternmost anchor of the Greater Antilles, the chain of large islands that includes Cuba, Jamaica, and Hispaniola, the island that includes Haiti and the Dominican Republic. It sits roughly 1,000 miles southeast of Miami, roughly the same distance as New York City is from Miami, and acts as a gatekeeper between the open Atlantic Ocean to the north and the Caribbean Sea to the south. And this specific location is the first clue to its turbulent history. Puerto Rico isn't just a tropical island because geographically it's more of a fortress. To the west lies the Mona Passage, a 90-mile wide strait separating Puerto Rico from the Dominican Republic. This passage is one of the most vital shipping lanes in the world, connecting the Atlantic to the Panama Canal. Historically, whoever controlled Puerto Rico controlled the flow of wealth into and out of the Americas. This made the island a prize not just for its resources, but for its location. It was the literal key to the Caribbean. But while its location made it a target, its terrain made it difficult to master. Contrary to the idea of a tropical paradise, Puerto Rico is incredibly mountainous. The island is bisected from east to west by the Cordillera Central, a massive mountain range that rises sharply from the coast. The highest peak, Cerro de Punta, towers over 4,300 feet above sea level. This geography created a stark divide that still exists today. The north is humid and green, fed by trade winds that dump rain as they hit the mountains. The south is drier, almost semi-arid in places, sitting in the rain shadow of the central spine. This rugged interior historically made infrastructure a nightmare. Moving goods from the coffee plantations in the mountains to the ports on the coast was an arduous task. It forced the population to cluster heavily along the narrow coastal plains, specifically in the north around San Juan. This concentration of people makes the island incredibly vulnerable. When a hurricane strikes, there's not many places you can retreat to. The mountains trap the water, sending flash floods rushing down into the densely populated lowland cities. So, we have an island that is 1. Strategically located at a global choke point, 2. Internally divided by a massive mountain range, and 3. Sitting on the edge of an underwater abyss that creates constant seismic threats. It's a beautiful, dangerous, and highly strategic piece of land. And because of that strategic value, powerful nations have always wanted to own it. But the United States didn't just want to own the land, they wanted to fundamentally change the people living on it. And that brings us to the people who were there first, and the empire that tried to erase them. Before it was a territory of the United States, and long before it was ever the rich port, this island had a name given to it by its original inhabitants. Borican, or the Land of the Brave. The people who lived here were the Taino, and they weren't just a small tribe, they were a complex, thriving civilization that dominated the Caribbean. By the time Christopher Columbus stumbled onto the island in 1493, during his second voyage, the Taino had established large villages, a sophisticated agricultural system, and a culture that prized art and sport. But the Taino made a fatal mistake. They welcomed the strangers. The Spanish arrived looking for gold, and they found it in the rivers of Borican. They renamed the island San Juan Bautista, and the main trading port became Puerto Rico, or the Rich Port. Eventually, through a clerical mix-up that stuck, the names swapped. The island became Puerto Rico, and the capital became San Juan. What followed was a genocide. Through forced labor and gold mines, brutal warfare, and most devastatingly, smallpox and measles, the Taino population collapsed. By 1520, the Spanish census claimed the Taino were extinct. But that was a lie. Recent DNA studies have proven that the Taino didn't disappear. They survived by retreating into the mountainous interior and intermarrying with Africans brought to the island to work the sugar plantations. Today, the average Puerto Rican carries significant mitochondrial DNA from those original Taino women. The people were not erased, but they were absorbed. Over the next 400 years, Puerto Rico was a neglected military outpost for the Spanish Empire. While other colonies rebelled and gained independence in the 1800s, Puerto Rico remained one of Spain's two wings of the Caribbean, alongside Cuba. But by the end of the 19th century, a new empire was rising in the north. The United States had conquered its own continent, the Atlantic to the Pacific, and was now looking for power overseas. In 1898, the Spanish-American War broke out after the sinking of the USS Maine in Havana Harbor in Cuba. This was all the US needed for justification to start a war, and claimed it was fighting to liberate Cuba from Spanish tyranny. But when the US Navy bombarded San Juan in May of 1898, they weren't there to liberate Puerto Rico. They were there to acquire it. The invasion of Puerto Rico officially began on May 12, 1898, when a squadron of 12 US ships commanded by Rear Admiral William T. Sampson of the United States Navy attacked San Juan. This was followed on July 25th when 1,300 infantry soldiers led by Nelson A. Miles disembarked off the coast of Guanica in the southwest. Many locals, tired of centuries of Spanish neglect, welcomed them. They believed the US would grant them the democracy and statehood they craved. They were wrong. When the Treaty of Paris was signed later that year, ending the war, Spain ceded Puerto Rico to the United States. But here's the critical part that set the stage for everything happening today. Puerto Ricans were not at the negotiating table. The island was transferred like property, a literal spoil of war. This created a legal crisis back in Washington. The US Constitution didn't really have a provision for holding colonies indefinitely. The US was supposed to be a republic, not an empire. So, the Supreme Court invented a solution. In a series of decisions, known as the Insular Cases, the Supreme Court ruled that Puerto Rico belonged to, but is not part of, the United States. They labeled it an unincorporated territory, inhabited by alien races who were unable to understand Anglo-Saxon principles of law. This legal limbo meant that the Constitution did not fully apply to Puerto Rico. Congress could do whatever it wanted with the island, and what they did first was try to Americanize it by force. They changed the name to Puerto Rico, a misspelling that lasted until 1932. They made English the mandatory language in schools, firing teachers who spoke Spanish. They tried to strip the culture from the people. But the cultural resistance was too strong. The US realized they couldn't turn Puerto Ricans into Americans overnight. So instead, they decided to turn the island into a profit center. This brings us to the modern era. The United States had the land, and they had the legal cover to rule it without granting rights. Now they just needed to figure out how to extract the maximum value from it while doing the bare minimum to keep it afloat. And the mechanisms they built to do that are exactly what is choking the life out of the island today. The United States didn't just acquire Puerto Rico, it built a legal and economic cage around it by using a very specific set of federal laws that, when combined, create a perfect storm for economic failure. The first bar of this cage was formed in 1920, and it's called the Jones Act. And I don't blame you if you've never heard of it. The US has a lot of obscure laws that actually impact a lot of our daily lives. Officially known as the Merchant Marine Act of 1920, this law sounds patriotic on paper. It requires that all goods transported by water between two US ports be carried on ships that are US flagged, US built, US owned, and US crewed. The goal was to support the American shipping industry after World War I. Before an island nation that imports 85% of its food and goods, the Jones Act is a chokehold. Here's how it works in practice. If a massive cargo ship from China full of electronics is heading to the US East Coast, it might pass right by Puerto Rico, but it can't simply offload goods in San Juan and then continue to Miami. To get those goods to Puerto Rico, they often have to go all the way to Jacksonville, Florida, be offloaded, and then reloaded onto a specialized, far more expensive American ship to then be sent back to San Juan. This logistical nightmare creates a pollution tax on everything. Puerto Ricans pay significantly more for groceries, cars, and energy than Americans on the mainland, despite having a fraction of the average income. But high prices are just the symptom. The real disease was a tax loophole that the US government hooked the island on and then suddenly ripped away. For decades, the US government knew Puerto Rico needed an independent economy. Their solution was Section 936 of the Internal Revenue Code. Passed in 1976, Section 936 allowed US manufacturing companies to operate in Puerto Rico without paying federal corporate taxes on their profits. And it worked. Pharmaceutical giants and tech companies flocked to the island. For a while, Puerto Rico was the manufacturing powerhouse of the Caribbean, and this meant that the middle class grew. The economy started to boom. Things were starting to look up in Puerto Rico for the very first time in a very long time. But in 1996, the US Congress decided to balance the budget. They viewed Section 936 as corporate welfare and voted to repeal it, with a 10-year phase-out ending in 2006. The results were catastrophic. When the tax breaks expired in 2006, the factories didn't just wind down. They fled almost overnight. Thousands of high-paying jobs evaporated. The tax base collapsed. Puerto Rico entered a recession in 2006 that it has literally never recovered from. So you have an island with a high cost of living, thanks to the Jones Act, and a collapsing revenue stream, thanks to the repeal of Section 936. How do you keep the lights on? You borrow money. The Puerto Rican government began issuing bonds to pay its bills, and Wall Street loved them. Because of another quirk in US law, Puerto Rican bonds are triple tax exempt. Local, state, and federal taxes don't apply. Investors gobbled them up, enabling the government to dig a deeper and deeper hole. By 2015, the debt had ballooned to over $70 billion, a sum the island could never hope to repay. In a normal US state, or even a city like Detroit, the government would declare Chapter 9 bankruptcy. This legal process allows a government to tell its creditors, we can't pay you everything, so we're going to restructure the debt and pay what we can. But Puerto Rico isn't a state, and it isn't a sovereign country, so it couldn't declare bankruptcy. But it's more nefarious than that. In 1984, a mysterious amendment was added to a federal bill that specifically excluded Puerto Rico from Chapter 9 bankruptcy protection. This meant Puerto Rico was legally prohibited from going bankrupt. They were trapped with their debt, and there was no way to escape it. But something had to give. So, the US Congress eventually stepped in, but not with a bailout. In 2016, they passed the Puerto Rico Oversight, Management, and Economic Stability Act, which established a fiscal control board. Known locally as La Junta, this unelected board of 7 members appointed by the US president has the final say over Puerto Rico's budget. And they have not been on Puerto Rico's side. They slashed pensions, closed hundreds of schools, and gutted the University of Puerto Rico, all in the name of paying back Wall Street. Effectively, Puerto Rico lost the little democracy it had. The people vote for a governor, but the governor answers to the board. And then things got worse. When Hurricane Maria slammed into the island in 2017, it exposed how little the United States actually cares about its island territory. The response to Hurricane Maria, compared to Hurricane Harvey in Texas or Irma in Florida, was statistically shameful. A study found that 9 days after the storms, FEMA had approved $141 million in aid for Texas survivors, but only $6 million for Puerto Rico. It took months to restore power to the island, the longest blackout in US history, while US citizens died in hospitals because generators failed. The message was clear: Puerto Ricans may be citizens, but they're not equal citizens. So, why is Puerto Rico failing? It's failing because it's forced to buy goods at inflated prices. It's failing because it was stripped of its primary economic engine. It's failing because it was legally barred from restructuring its debt. And it's failing because it's governed by an unelected board that prioritizes debt repayment over public services. But there is a light at the end of this dark tunnel. In the wake of Hurricane Maria, communities didn't wait for FEMA. They rebuilt their own bridges, cleared their own roads, and are now leading a green energy revolution by installing their own solar grids, independent of the failing power authority. And culturally, the island is becoming a global superpower, exporting music and art that dominates the world stage, proving that you can colonize a land, but you cannot conquer a spirit. Tourism is hitting record highs. The diaspora is reconnecting to invest back home, and a new generation is politically awake, demanding accountability in the streets of San Juan. Puerto Rico's geography defined its past, and its history defined its struggle. But its future? That's finally being written by Puerto Ricans themselves, and if history is any guide, they're very resilient.
And you see the latter part that said the young people are aware of their history. And you see how Puerto Rico had to fend for itself. Now let me ask you this, Africa. If the United States treats its own people, its own citizens like this, simply because they are brown or they have that Negro blood in their veins, how do you think they'll treat us, the Caribbean people, who are, beyond a shadow of a doubt, descendants from Africa?
Yes, and the audio speaks for itself, and it's so much food for thought. But before I answer your question, I just want to give a little background in terms of the name of the individual that goes by the name Bad Bunny. His name is Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio. That's his name. Yeah. So you did ask us to listen to the audio, and that would have laid the foundation for Puerto Rico, because here is it, Puerto Rico, the citizens are United States citizens. And one of the things that's really struck a nerve, Quint, is that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, watched the halftime Super Bowl, and he responded in his own way to what he thought was atrocious and all of those names that would be added to that. But if nothing else was appealing, and there are some common thread in the Caribbean, is that we are susceptible to the hazards that comes our way. And with Puerto Rico and the devastation from Hurricane Maria really spoke volumes to the egregiousness of me being an American citizen on an island, but yet I am not treated as equal as if a hurricane would have hit the U.S. mainland and the assistant. The lopsided disparity with the 6 million as opposed to the other
100 and something
million that was given to the mainland and rescue FEMA.
And remember, Africa, while you're treating them as subhuman, you're benefiting from them by the laws you're putting in place to exploit them, you know.
And when they realized they put laws in place that would have probably helped them to keep their head above the water, they enforced more laws to really take assistance from them.
Yeah.
I happen to interact with some Puerto Ricans because there are Puerto Rican students that are enrolled in the Ross University, the School of Veterinary Medicine. And me, and in my profession, I would move them around from time to time. And I have met such a dear lady, young lady, and her father assisted me because Puerto Rico is a hub in itself.
Yeah.
You know, spare parts of vehicles that we would have wanted. You know, the supplies here would go there and shop and so forth. And we have grown to develop a relationship, even though she has moved on to the U.S. mainland to pursue her studies in her semesters in becoming a vet. We still communicate. The line of communication is still open. She will message me from time to time. I will do likewise.
Yeah.
And I have gotten to know more about Puerto Rico, the culture, and the likes. But for the fact that the guy, Bad Bunny, chose not to sing his lyrics in English speaks to something else, because his appeal was to all people, because there were other acts on the program that sang in English.
Yes, yes.
But his appeal was to we dance a yard before we dance abroad.
That's it.
Because he appealed to the Latin America community and diaspora, right? Because at the end of his song, he made mention of so many Latin American countries and Caribbean countries and so in the Americas. So he was all inclusive, and that was a signal that was sent to our governments in the Caribbean, that if a Latin, Spanish-speaking person from Puerto Rico could do so and send a message to the U.S. because we are vulnerable to hurricane, and if one of the things that really broke the straw that broke the camel back was Hurricane Maria. We all saw this devastation, right? And the meager $6 million wasn't suffice.
Imagine $6 million for a big country like, I remember, I never forget the first time as a young boy when I went with my mother on one of her business travels, and I was flying over Puerto Rico, and just the plane is just going over land, and I'm thinking to myself, wow. Because soon as you jump in a plane in St. Kitts, bam, it's over water. Imagine for minutes and minutes and minutes you're running over land. And I said to my mother, I said, wow, this airport, where is it? This is a big place. And she says, well, this isn't the airport further in the country. This is one of them on the coastline.
I'm telling you, I had that experience in 1987. Because I flew here on American Eagle to San Juan. And it's the same experience. It's like me coming from a small island like St. Kitts and flying over Puerto Rico is like, am I done in the U.S.? I was en route to the U.S., to New York,
Yeah.
It's like, this is an island?
You understand?
Yeah, so I had that experience.
Yeah.
But the
before
culture...
Before you go on, let's take a commercial break. And we'll be back, and you can remember your final thought there.
Found the sound 98.9.
This Valentine's Day, celebrate love with a taste of something truly special. From the heart of Port Zante, St. Kitts Chocolate Factory presents the Valentine's Sweet Package. 3 delightful options crafted to match your moment. Option 1, just $99. 4 handcrafted locally made chocolates. 4 chocolate dipped strawberries. A simple sweet gesture that says, I'm thinking of you. Option 2, 135. 6 gourmet chocolates. 4 chocolate dipped strawberries. 1 small teddy bear. A balanced blend of flavor and charm. Perfect for sharing. Option 3, 189. 9 assorted chocolates. 6 chocolate dipped strawberries. A cuddly teddy bear. Our deluxe package for when you want to go all out. Handcrafted with love, locally made with pride, wrapped in romance, ready for you. Place your order today. WhatsApp or call 762-3232 or 764-7860. Find us at Port Zante, directly across from the marina. Just look for the sign and follow your heart. St. Kitts Chocolate Factory, where love is always in season.
Come, build with us at Hostels Building and Nevis Centers. We don't just sell materials, we help you build your dreams. Whether it's a new home, a renovation, or a DIY project, we're here to make it happen. That's why we say, build with us. From foundation to finish, come to our stores where we have the best in building materials, hardware, tools, paints, expert advice, and more. Whatever you need, you can count on us. So if you're ready to get started, build with us. With Hostels Building and Nevis Centers, you're not just building a structure, you're building a future. Let us help you create something amazing. Dream with us, plan with us, grow with us, build with us. Come build with us at Hostels Building and Nevis Centers today. Build with us at Hostels.
And we're back. The time 10:47, and right back to you, Mr. Africa. Remember your final thought.
Yes. So the audio you played speaks volume to so many things that we may not have been afraid to, aware of, but for the fact that Puerto Rico is just slightly north of us, and there were so many of us who migrated to Puerto Rico back in the days, that the solidarity that was displayed at the halftime Super Bowl really, really should hit home and should give us a better appreciation and synopsis of where the struggle is, even for the fact that Donald Trump responded to the halftime Super Bowl and all of that.
You have a caller. Caller, go ahead, please.
Yes. Good morning. Nice to see you in the studio, Africa.
Thanks.
That clip was so revealing. It explains so much.
Yeah.
Right? Because, you see, we remember Puerto Rico in the late 90s, in the 90s certainly, as the place to go for shopping.
Yeah.
It was the closest metropolitan area, to us.
Yeah.
Right? And so we would go down there often. And then to go there now and see the place, to see how the airport is almost, is less than half what it used to be
Yeah.
in terms of occupancy and so on. the airlines flying there and so on. You know, it's really heartbreaking. And to see the methods used.
The methods.
Yeah,
And
it
Mr.
reminds you of Haiti, doesn't it?
Mr. McMahon, just stop. This is what our Caribbean leaders don't understand here. And this is treatment meted out to people who are supposed to be American citizens. But yet still you put laws to keep them down. So what do our leaders in the Caribbean expect when they just crumble and bow and beg?
This is Haiti all over again. This is just like how the French
Yes.
basically treated Haiti.
Yeah.
You know, and so that might be a forecast of what is to come for the whole area, the whole Caribbean and Latin
That's
American
it.
area.
That's it.
You know, because see, around that time, Cuba. They say now Cuba is a threat to national security. I don't know how, to be quite honest.
You understand?
But that time, Cuba was seen as a model which they feared that the rest of the region would follow.
Yes.
And Puerto Rico was promoted as the way to go, as was said.
Yes.
Had lots of investment and,
Yeah.
and so on. Okay, it was the place to go for advanced medical attention, the shopping, the pharmaceuticals, and all of that.
Yeah.
And look at it now.
Look at it now.
You know? And what's also worrying is how the Puerto Ricans reacted. In that, especially after the hurricane.
After the hurricane.
I mean, I think it's a third of the population went to the mainland. Okay, that decimates the island even more.
Yes.
Okay, and we certainly don't want in our situation to end up like no boat people.
Yeah.
Okay, because when people are desperate, they do all kind of desperate things.
That's it.
And so we should be really looking at how we react to what is actually going on now.
Yeah.
Okay, because we don't want a repeat of that. You know?
But you know, Mr. McMahon, I played a clip this morning as to the black people in America's reaction,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
The African American reaction. And you want to tell me for the life of me, people who are descendants of people of the Middle Passage, they don't understand that you're supposed to put up some defense. I mean, all of them,
was amazing.
all of them seeing these foreign flags. I mean, could you imagine that?
How could you identify with people who don't want to identify with you?
Huh?
If people don't want you, they don't want you, right? And if they show it in so many ways, and you still for some reason feel that, well, I am with you.
Yes.
It's amazing. I don't understand it. To be quite
Africa,
honest.
your input on that about the African Americans' reaction. Black African Americans.
Yes. Firstly, welcome, Mr. McMahon, to the discourse. I always admire you, your contribution, your expertise in areas that we may not be or might be overlooked by some of us. And I just wish to say, Mr. McMahon, that you said something, because I listened to you keenly, about our morass, our situation, our health situation, and wanting to get rid of the Cuban doctors in our health facilities. And you said something wisely, which I would deem was a diplomatic gesture for our government to really grant citizenship to the Cuban doctors. And that was wise, that was clever. And I hope they are listening.
That's one form of resistance. That,
Yes,
you know,
it is. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, because we cannot afford to erode our flailing hospital conditions and the situation that the lack thereof in terms of expertise in critical areas. And that is a stroke of genius in terms of diplomacy. And I hope they take it on board. Now, there's going to be a meeting or a few meetings from the 24th I have not gotten the location as yet, but I want to grace my presence there with my placard, because I want to ask them, why are they treating Haiti like a stepchild? And so I look forward to that meeting or the gathering.
But they're treating Haiti worse than a stepchild. They're treating Haiti like Haiti is Lazarus, plagued with all kind of diseases, and has a sign that says, "Don't come near me." You understand?
Yes, but as for the Americans, Black African Americans, I did not hear much. Maybe it's there, but I did not read into or listen to much of the reaction, more so than the comparative analysis with, there was another act that night of another artist, and the comparative analysis with that Bad Bunny performance and the entourage as opposed to the other act. The artist's name is evading me at this moment.
A female?
No, it was a male act.
Okay.
But at the same time, you have to wonder why American blacks think that way. Because they're obviously second-class citizens in that land.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to wonder why they would essentially take the side of those who are whose obvious intent is to make sure that they stay second-class citizens.
Yeah.
Right? And Africa, this question is for you. You mentioned that you have you've spoken to some Puerto Ricans in your line of work. There used to be an independence movement in Puerto Rico. Has it all but gone away? What do you ever hear talk of that?
It is there because sentiments that emanated from one or two of the students would be bordering on those type of sovereignty, like, you know what I mean, independence for Puerto Rico to some aspect. But the self-sufficiency in terms of electricity, I have heard that, like, where one or two of them, the students, their parents has already installed electricity because they admire our electric grid here. For whatever reason, there had one or two power outages, and the timing in getting it up. Of course, we're smaller, so having to mitigate some of the cascading effect that has happened in Puerto Rico, like to mitigate the grid closing down.
You don't expect those kinds of problems in an American, in inverted commas, country, with such high technology and so many resources.
But to answer the question you asked, Africa, in terms of their leaning towards independence, I played a clip some time ago in regards to that, and I'm going to sort of reiterate verbally that yes, they are continuing to lean towards independence, but that creates another dichotomy because they're seeming to feel, and this is where Bad Bunny seems to be more of what a lot of the younger people might be thinking, and hopefully they are in the majority, because if they're thinking the way Bad Bunny is thinking, then it means that Puerto Rico might seek autonomy to be self-independent. But what they're moving on right now is that they're leaning more towards going back on the Spain. And if you follow
Oh,
that
yeah?
clip, yeah, and if you follow that clip that I played, it tells you that they were glad when the Americans came because they thought that things would get better.
Right, yeah, I heard
You
that part,
understand?
yeah.
So, but one of the reasons they're leaning towards that is again because a lack of self history and identity. Because they're leaning towards that because when you look at Bad Bunny, he looks more like a white person. And they're leaning towards that because they're feeling they're more white and they're trying to move away from the blackness. Again, that clip shows you they survived because of integration into that blackness and the black struggle that continued. So that is why I say I hope that the majority of the young people lean more towards Bad Bunny because you see, he presented all the shades. You notice that?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yes.
You know, that, I mean, he must have really thought
He
through.
th-
Somebody
you
must have
understand?
Really thought through that presentation because, and you notice how it ignited the feelings among the region.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't mean nothing that any of our leaders have done to me has sparked so much
You're right.
on
You're right.
as what he did.
Yes.
An artist.
Yes.
Yeah? Not a politician who can effect change if they want to, but an artist.
An artist.
Okay?
I wrote a post, two posts, because it the performance on the halftime Super Bowl somewhat dovetails from the Grammy and what Trevor Noah he presented him because he was the guy, the host, the presenter to the Grammy with the best song of the year and so forth. And I wrote a post pertaining to that and how artistry and drama and the likes of saying what you have to say in those areas went well because Donald Trump responded to what Trevor Noah said, and he also responded to what the song that Bad Bunny's performance. But the question and the matter about African Americans, I did heard Jay-Z spoke about the security aspect of him playing that role in financing his Bad Bunny's security because at one if you can check the performance, it's like, okay, he was trying to secure the earplug in his ear at times, but at times you would find that he was looking over his shoulder here and there, and because there were so many dead checks that were sent out to him. So Jay-Z on that level as an artist and who has performed at that stage also really bolstered the security to make sure that he can perform.
Jay-Z right now, his role is mainly the main producer part of the whole, presentation thing. But back to you, Mr. McMahon. I'm gonna bounce back to you. Back to you, Mr. McMahon. Here is an artist, as you said, not a politician, but an artist, and he, as an individual, is getting such a backlash in terms of death threats and this and that, but he still goes out and does what he has to do. But our leaders who are politicians, who have people behind them who are supposed to be there to buttress them, they are just whimpering.
And but what you said just now about Puerto Rican may want to revert to
Spain,
food.
yes.
It has it has happened before,
Yeah.
Look at Angola,
Yeah.
right? And you have to wonder what is the end game when they try to do that, okay? Because, yes, they're prospering now, and I'm not so sure it's because they're a colony. I think it's Anguillans' own certain blood.
Yes.
Right, do they really want to stay under that fold, or don't they want to be independent?
Yeah.
Right? Is independence so scary? I'm wondering if the example of Haiti scares. It was not just a matter of scaring the Haitians, or putting the Haitians on the foot, but it was a means of making sure that independent nations stay in their place.
Yeah, yeah,
You
it
know?
is. It is.
Yeah. You know,
But there lies a thing that shows us we need to in the future be leaning towards a multi-purpose world, a multipolar world, that is.
multipolar world.
Yeah.
But right now, though, you know, you realize nobody is standing up to the United States. Nobody. I mean,
But that is why
look at what, as I mentioned this morning, look at what Jamaica did.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what a big country like Canada did.
yeah.
Rather than say, well, okay, we'll just refuel in Jamaica, which is close by, or Cayman Islands, or, you know, one of the, or even Haiti, or Dominican Republic, I think is closer. They prefer to pull Air Canada out.
Yeah.
Big Canada. So even they.
But when you follow the Canadian history, even though I must commend them for the part that they played with the Underground Railway, okay, we cannot forget that, the part that Canada played for a lot of slaves to be able to go towards freedom. But apart from that, if you look at Canada's history, and even more recent history, Canada has been a part of agreeing with what the U.S. has been doing, you know. It is only now that Canada is getting a backlash because the U.S. and Trump is showing, just as as it shows, that they will enact laws to make sure that it keeps it. Why you think
not only that, you heard the story about the bridge that was supposed to facilitate trade between the two. Where
Yes.
Trump is threatening to not open it.
That's what I'm saying. So here is it, Mr. McMahon, and Africa. This is the position we find ourselves in. I agree with you. Everybody seems to be wanting to sort of be intimidated and capitulate. But with time, you already see it happening. But with time, they're gonna have to revisit this and think about long term if this will be beneficial for them. Because the more they acquiesce for a longer period, the harder it's going to be for them to come out of it as time ensues.
Yeah, it's like giving them an inch. They're going to take the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
You know. But there's one thing, Africa. You mentioned the fact that we should give them citizenship. There's another thing I think we could do. That the leaders could do. I remember when. Hello.
Yeah, we are here. We're listening.
When the Venezuelan crisis started, when they started bringing in warships and so on, I remember saying that we should try and forestall this rather than let Big Brother North come in and impose its will on Venezuela. We should be encouraging Venezuela to change, okay? Have elections that are internationally supervised and so on to forestall this. Don't give them
A reason. Excuse.
Right.
Yeah. I
we
agree.
should-
Yeah. That's a form of diplomacy too. Yeah, I agree. I hear you.
And we should be doing, come that meeting here on the 24th, we should be doing the same thing in terms of Cuba. We should be
And you know,
Cuba.
and you know, Mr. McMahon, that is brilliant, especially in envisioning what is happening now. Because if they were to have election, I mean, tell you, right now, those people are so against the United States and that woman who they wanted to put there. You understand? So yeah, you're right.
If they're smart, they make inroads.
Yes.
CARICOM should tell Cuba that we're willing to help you transfer to a multi-party system.
Yeah.
Okay, because we don't want another invasion of Cuba.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't.
We don't want the Cuban people to suffer any more than the thing.
Yeah.
So forestall any more U.S.
I
pressure.
agree. Forestall is the keyword. That's diplomacy. Right? That's diplomacy.
And the region should be behind this. It helps. It gives the people in Cuba, the regime in Cuba, a way out
Yes.
because
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure they understand our position.
Yeah.
We're forced into what we're doing
Yeah.
against them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still their friends, I would hope.
Yeah, I would
And
hope
so
so
they
too.
should take it as friendly advice and forestall what the U.S., because we know that the U.S. is going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah, Africa said this morning, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm mistaken. Africa. I think Africa suggested that China is going to find a way to give Cuba some help in terms of oil, because somebody has got to help them. We can't just watch them die.
You see,
No,
the
some-
thing is,
someone
there is
else
nobody who's
had-
going to risk 1963, where remember when the Russians started bringing things, a Cuban Missile Crisis. Nobody.
That's
from the
different.
time-
That's look.
from the time-
That's
from the time
this,
the
Mr.
world-
Mr. McMahon. You can't be saying one thing and then capitulating on the other end.
What's
You're
that?
saying, we're saying this is a humanitarian thing, and this is the world now. As you said, almost everybody is acquiescing. Everybody is showing they want to appease the U.S. If China now says, look, we're going to send in some oil so that people can survive, you want to tell me the rest of the world is going to say, this isn't any arms and that kind of stuff. The people in this modern day and era, you need fuel so that you can survive.
Quint, the U.S. is not going to allow them
Look,
to
look,
Just a minute.
This isn't Mr. McMahon. This isn't us, the little Caribbean islands, trying to do something. And I'm saying, if China can find a way to send some ships in there to carry oil, this isn't oil coming out now. Yes, I agree. I agree with you 100%. America is going to try to do something, but I am saying America is going to do something. But I am saying, and this is the problem with the world. I am saying, so what you're suggesting is that we just stay there and let Cuba die? Let Cubans die?
No. I suggested that the shift.
Yes, and I agreed with you on that.
System.
But
Yeah.
I am also saying that they need some fuel.
But what I'm saying, look at what Jamaica did. And,
That's Jamaica.
Wait, hold on. It was not just Jamaica. Mexico also stopped.
Yes, but
Because-
I am
because they're
saying,
on the
but
threat
I am
as well.
saying, if China wants to say they're going to help, let them help. Let them try. That is what I'm saying. You're suggesting that, okay, so Jamaica doesn't want to help and Mexico doesn't want to help. So we as human beings with a heart and a conscience are supposed to watch those Cubans die when they what crime have they committed what crime have they committed other than being of a political persuasion that the US isn't of?
What I'm saying is, Quinn, right? China and Russia is not going to stay over there and risk their countries.
They're not
for
risking
Cuba.
anything.
They're not gonna do it.
They're not risking anything. I am saying,
How come
listen,
how come Panama?
man, look,
how come
look,
when China
this
was
is
in
why
Panama?
we're hopeless, you know. This is why we're hopeless, because we're not consistent. We're saying one thing. We're saying, Lord, we are sorry for the Cubans, and we need to help them, and we need to tell them, have democracy and have elections, and we agree with you on that. That's a form of diplomacy. But we're also saying, you're also saying, until America decides whatever, let America just impose on these people something that is completely unjust and watch people die?
Well, it's what has happened before, and I'm saying.
Oh, so if it was us, Mr. McMahon, if it was us, this is what Nubian said this morning, you know, if it was us, and it was us who didn't have the fuel, and it was us who the United States was treating like this, don't you think we would want even some feather of help from somebody?
Some relief, of course. But I'm telling you.
So why are you then saying that there should be no
you don't
relief from
understand-
anybody?
You don't understand where I'm coming from. What I'm saying.
I will never
is-
understand where you're coming
what-
from
what
in
I'm
this
saying,
sense.
what I'm saying is just like how the world stood by, including China and Russia, and watched the U.S. blockade Venezuela. Did nothing. They even took over a Russian tanker when it was in the North Atlantic, right? Did nothing. I would not put any false hope on China coming to Cuba's
And
assistance.
if you had
Look at
said,
what- look at
Mr.
what
McMahon,
happened.
Mr. McMahon, if you had put it, if you had worded it that way, I would have agreed with you. But it's how you worded it. You see, I listen keenly to what people say, and I agree
And-
with
and,
you.
how
I'm not.
did I
Let,
do
let
it?
me let
Word
me
it
finish
different.
because here's what you're now saying. You're now saying, if what Africa is saying is true, and I heard it from Africa, am I correct?
No, I did not mention anything about China. I did not even call in on the
Okay,
program
so
this
then,
morning. So,
so
it had to
then,
be
so
someone
then
else.
it's someone else.
But,
That is why I asked you to be sure. Because
Yeah, can I kind of
yes,
jump in
interject.
there?
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
I am aware that Mexico was supplying and they were asked not to supply anymore, and Mexico is somewhat pushing back and saying no, they will supply. As of late, I don't know what changes might have been done, but Mexico was
They said
supplying
food instead,
food, oil also.
not oil.
Okay, but
They said they're negotiating with Washington around it.
around the
We'll
oil
see
supplies.
We'll see where that goes.
Yes.
I'm just pointing out that when they insisted that China take a back seat with the Panama Canal, not a soul said anything either.
Exactly,
Panama,
because
right?
the deal that was between China and Panama, it's nullified now. It's like
Yes.
Yes, so that is why I said, and again, my apologies, Africa. Someone said it and I can't remember. That is why I asked, and I again ask you so that you can say it wasn't you. But I'm getting this from secondhand, right? Someone suggested that China might help. Now, if you, Mr. McMahon, had said, Quint, I hear you, but I don't put any faith in China following through with that, I would have agreed with you. But I was getting the impression you're saying, if China decides otherwise, that they would help, that you're suggesting they shouldn't because the United States of America is an impediment. And that is why I disagreed with you vehemently. Because I'm saying, if anybody has the guts enough to say, I'm going to lend a feather of help, some kind of assistance to these people, we should not discourage it in any way. We cannot, as a human species, sit down and watch other people suffer because some bully, some heartless bully is trying to destroy them. Because if it was us, we wouldn't want that. That is where I disagreed with you. But I like the way you word it now, and I cannot disagree with you on that. I listen carefully to what people say, and I
Yeah,
try to
okay.
follow off
Well,
on that.
The point I guess I was making in the first instance is from a Chinese perspective, they're not going to risk their neck for Cuba.
And I can't disagree with you on that. It's left to be seen. Okay.
Jill,
Because it's clear, as the U.S. has said, straight, this is my hemisphere. Don't intercede. Okay, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
along that line, Mr. McMahon, I agree, because the geopolitical analysts already, and I think China and Russia, they are very, very clever and astute about, the logistics to
Yeah,
bring anything
yeah.
in this hemisphere to bolster anyone. It's a nightmare in itself. What I can say though,
they're more likely to make deals with the U.S. and say, well, we'll just keep out of this if you do something else. Well, they're more likely.
And I would agree. I would agree with you on that.
All countries look after their own interests, right?
But
Every last one.
You're right.
Okay?
You're
Our
right.
problem here, though, is that we have a number of different countries in the region with obviously the same interests, and they are not sticking together.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the main problem, right?
But
They're
Mr.
feeling
McMahon,
that their little interest, their little speck in the ocean, have some kind of interest that is different from another little speck just 50 miles away.
Yeah.
And that's not so. That's how they're acting.
Yeah.
and let us stay within this hemisphere, but I want to just go beyond for a small moment. Look what is taking place in the Middle East, where China and Russia see the need to bolster Iran, and no doubt it is happening, and how the U.S. was forced to go back to the table by negotiation with the JCPOA, that pact with in 2015 with the nuclear potential of Iran,
Yeah.
and the force that the movement, the logistics going into Iran to bolster Iran's air defense systems and the likes. It is happening. It is happening. So not to really go into that hemisphere because we're
But that
dealing
was a
with
good
things.
that was a good point to make, though, because it shows where it kind of butches what Mr. McMahon is saying, and I agree with that. But see, I'm looking at how people verbally phrase things, because I don't want us to. Here's what I don't want. I don't want, because we are in a compromised position, that we let everybody feel that they can just trample over us. But I agree that we need to unite. But Africa, your input there in terms of Iran is a very valid point, because again it shows where proximity and geopolitical, politics plays a part.
Because it seems like that nuclear-powered aircraft carrier withdrew probably 100 miles back from the coast by the Persian Gulf.
Yeah, they want to be out of range.
Yeah, you know what? Say, well, okay, and whereas the Tomahawk missiles only have 100 miles range, I was told. So it plays that, it goes to show that Iran could have never done that by itself.
Yeah.
Therefore, China and Russia, they are playing a very strategic military part in bolstering Iran's security, defense, and so forth, and their likes.
Yeah. Mr. McMahon, let me ask you this. I'm not too sure, but I think China is not self-sufficient in terms of fossil fuel, right?
No, it imports quite a bit.
Yeah, and quite a bit comes from the Middle East.
And Russia.
Yeah. So that is why Africa's point is valid there, because they're going to look after their interests, because in this day and age you don't want to be without energy that fuels your economy,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know how oil became so preeminent again in terms of foreign policy, when in fact we are moving away from fossil fuels, right? Because that might eventually change the balance again,
But
Because
that-
if
but
the U.S. seem to be concentrating on fossil fuels,
yeah.
whereas China seems to be the ones developing other sources of energy.
But that's because of, again, China is not self-sufficient in fossil fuel, and it wants to make sure it determines its survival, so it's moving in the art. But here's the problem with the United States now. The United States, to some extent, wants to move away from fossil fuel, but their factories and the industries that really runs that country, they're still dependent on fossil fuel.
And believe it or not,
To a great
Canada
extent.
supplies a lot of the U.S. oil and
Yeah.
gas, maybe.
Yeah, even though the U.S. can be, I think, be self-sufficient in fossil fuels, right? But I think there's a big lobby in the states that prevent the move away from fossil fuels.
Yeah, you're right there.
Yeah.
Because, for instance, that is one of the reasons why they invaded Venezuela, because a lot of the monies that they put into those factories that refines that thick crude that thing has, it is stopping a lot of business happening in the U.S. because a lot of those businesses, machineries and so forth, in that part of the industry rely on that thick fuel. Even though Trump started out by saying, "Oh, we don't want that. That is mud. That is thick like mud," but that was only rhetoric. You understand? Yeah.
Well, it's it's interesting how Trump has. Well, I did think he was underestimated from the beginning. I think
And he's still being underestimated.
everybody tried to put him down as a simpleton and so on,
Yeah.
and not very intellectual and so on. But maybe that had a good effect in terms of making him see things clearly, and what was in the U.S. interest very clearly, and so he looks at things in terms of real estate and transactions, and that is why he have these policies that, like what going into Venezuela, wanting Canada to be
I still feel
Greenland and
I still feel, and I'm going to go out on a ledge because I express what I feel. I still feel that he's a fool. I still feel he's a simpleton, even though let me finish my point. Even though I must give him some credit in terms. Here's what he is. He is a bully who knows what he wants and has the power to go for it. That is what he is. He knows what he wants. He knows how to get it, and he has the power behind him to do it. As long as a bully has the power to enforce, they will do what they want. It's not because they're so brilliant, right? But he knows what he wants, and he's not even moving so much in the interest of the United States. He's moving more in interest of what he can get. Because if you were to look at the kind of monies that he's getting in and insert, and insert the word corruption, I mean, wow, it's just unbelievable.
There is the financial aspect to it in terms of, for instance, Japan, the EU, Canada to a lesser extent. But let's say Japan and the EU has a lot of U.S. bonds. And there are times when those countries will want to bolster their economy if they were to get rid of some of the bonds that they have. And that will continue to happen from time to time, because I think Japan dumped, as they would say in financial terms, dumped some U.S. bonds the other day. And in order for the U.S. to have to consolidate their economy, because every time bonds are being gotten rid of, dumped, the U.S. currency will lose points. And it happens because the U.S. currency is not as strong as it was. And it's gradually losing points as the days progress.
Hold your thought there. I want to take a commercial break. Mr. McMahon, you're going to have to hang on. But feel free to call back in, because we love engaging you so that we can... Okay. Yeah, so we'll take that bit of commercial break and we'll be right back.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
More than 42 million cars from 19 different car companies are being recalled for faulty airbag inflators. Repairs are fast, easy, and free. The problem isn't with the airbag, it's with the airbag inflator. Because the inflator can rupture, shooting shrapnel through the airbag, which can cause serious injury or even death. Don't risk it, fix it.
Please contact TDC Automotive Division to find out if your Toyota vehicle is affected by the Takata airbag recall. Visit or call us at 465-2511 in St. Kitts or 469-5430 in Nevis.
This Valentine's Day, celebrate love with a taste of something truly special. From the heart of Port Zante, St. Kitts Chocolate Factory presents the Valentine's Sweet Package. 3 delightful options crafted to match your moment. Option 1, just $99. 4 handcrafted locally made chocolates. 4 chocolate dipped strawberries. A simple sweet gesture that says, I'm thinking of you. Option 2, $135. 6 gourmet chocolates, 4 chocolate dipped strawberries, 1 small teddy bear. A balanced blend of flavor and charm, perfect for sharing. Option 3, 189, 9 assorted chocolates, 6 chocolate dipped strawberries, a cuddly teddy bear. Our deluxe package for when you want to go all out. Handcrafted with love, locally made with pride, wrapped in romance, ready for you. Place your order today. WhatsApp or call 762-3232 or 764-7860. Find us at Port Zante, directly across from the marina. Just look for the sign and follow your heart. St. Kitts Chocolate Factory, where love is always in season.
It's the energy of we people, something pulsing inside. It beating every soul, a feeling we cannot It's always pushing us forward, the limit up in the sky. There's rhythm in how we flow, a rhythm that can't be denied. It's in the feeling in how we talk. It's in the meaning in our spot. It is the thing that sets us apart. Who we are, 'cause the rhythm of life keeps pumping.
Live fruitful. Look for us on the shelf with our new packaging. Enjoy 100% natural juice flavor. It's so fresh.
Live fruitful with Fruta.
And the time 11:31, and it's right back to you, Africa.
Yes, it would be interesting to see what would be on the table for the meeting, the gathering of our heads of states, CARICOM heads of states, here in the Federation from the 24th till about probably 27th, if my dates are correct. It would be interesting, but no doubt Cuba and the medical assistance from Cuba would be high on that agenda. Along with other matters, we have heard of matters like the MOU that we agreed to, albeit it is said that it's a non-binding MOU. I have not read into much of what the St. Lucia Philip Pierre, or his name, Prime Minister, would have said, and that would have been another matter because of the diplomacy that warranties our approach to having to be confronted with this bully-like diplomacy from our big brother in the north. It will be prudent for us to really be tactful in our approach and have a unison approach to this matter, because it warranty that we see eye to eye. I know there are skirmish, there are pushbacks because an election is soon approaching in Barbados, and I have read into some fictions there with Mayor Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados, and Kamala Persad-Bissessar of Trinidad and Tobago, and the role she's playing, like the color yellow and some things along those lines there. And we are seeing that the strong lady, Mayor Motley, who see her sovereignty as sovereignty of an independent nation as Barbados, and is playing her role, and what would have spurred the calling of the election would have probably be on me. I, would have liked to get more, but we know that some changes are coming to favor the United States policies within the Caribbean and CARICOM leaders. And Mayor Motley makes no bones about where she stands, the way she speaks. She speaks volume, even on the international stage.
Hold a minute. There's a caller. Hello, caller.
Yes, Quinton, Africa. Greetings once more in Jesus Christ's name.
Morning, Greg.
No, yes, all the best, all the best. No, what I'm calling on to say is, earlier on the previous program, when Nubian was on, I'd wanted to call him to ask him what is his party's official position and what are they saying officially in a public, in a public way. You know, what are they saying officially?
Official on what? What is his party?
But what he was talking about, Cuba, this is Cuba situation, the Venezuela situation, the stuff that he was talking about this morning when he was on the program.
Okay, well.
But anyhow, I didn't get in. But
yeah.
Anyhow, another thing, mention was made again just now, not too long ago, when Africa repeated that he agreed with Mr. McMahon that we should make Cubans citizens. But the question will be, what will Cuba think about that? Because remember, once you are a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, you don't have to send back your money. You can stay here, and so on, as a citizen. And so therefore, the question is, what will Cuba think about that?
Well, I think that's a good question. Yeah, I think that's a relevant question.
I agree. That's a good question as well. But if granting citizenships to the doctors to really like circumvent what the U.S. is trying to do to Cuba, as well as the individuals, the doctors in this case.
Yes.
There should be concerns of that, what you raised just now, would be agreed on prior to granting citizenship, that it is a tactful approach to really be a diplomat in your own rights to do, so that we can get around weakening our healthcare system.
Yeah.
At the same time, bolstering the need and the granting the assistance that Cuba gives to us. It wouldn't be as an approach of conflict with the Cuban government, but it will be something that you can circumvent to get around what the US is trying to do. And
because remember, once they're citizens, they have full privilege here as a citizen, and they can stay here as long as they want to and that sort of stuff.
But as well as they are dual citizens, so they will be able to go back to Cuba.
Yeah, they would be able to go back.
Yeah,
but they can choose not to.
Yes, as well as, yes.
And trust me, and many of them would choose not to, I believe.
Yeah, well, that is your belief, and
that's my belief.
Yeah.
I think a number of them would, because we see Cubans coming here wanting to live here.
But you see, there's another. I won't disagree with you what you're saying, but there's a part of it that we tend to forget, and for what we tend to forget is family, right? That is what we tend to forget. Yes, a lot of them, having gotten citizenship, might decide, well, I want to stay here, but they're going to remember they have families over there who are depending on them. That is why a lot of us here in the Caribbean, and these are things America wants to curtail, the monies that we have gotten from people who have gone over there and who help their families back here. So that we must also take in consideration.
Yes, that remittances, the avenue of remittances will always be fluid, and it will flow.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
it is a good question, though, Greg. It is a good question.
Yes. But lastly, I would like to say, from my Christian perspective, the Bible tells us the nation that forget God will be turned into hell. But once you are on God's side, that is evidence that God is on your side. And to be quite truthful, I see the Bible being demonstrated true every moment of my life, and therefore, as a country, be it Cuba or whoever, you need to be on Jesus Christ's side, and then he will be on your side, and he will fight your battles, including against America. America cannot defeat him. And you would have all comfort and rest knowing that Jesus Christ is on your side, because you have evidence of it, of you being on his side, and therefore you will have no fear of America and that other stuff, because Jesus Christ will win them. Also, let me also say this. You see this thing about stopping fuel, America stopping fuel from going to Cuba. This isn't unique enough, because remember the reason why Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. Japan bombed Pearl Harbor because America at that time was doing the very same thing, blocking fuel from going into Japan. And Japan said, since you killing us off, we ain't going to just go down like that. We're going to attack you too.
But even in terms of that history, Greg, there are some questions, as to whether Japan really bombed Pearl Harbor or the United States bombed Pearl Harbor and used it as an excuse. Because, look, the things that people will do in this history and in terms of war, it is remarkable what people will do. And what the Europeans have done, go back in the history book and see what the Europeans have done to spur war. For instance, when they had the native Indians fighting against them, what the Europeans did was to dress up like Indians in a lot of ways, dress up like Indians and attack their own villages and their own women, rape them and kill them, so that the blame went on the Indians, and then the Europeans then went all out war. These are historical facts. These are historical facts. And don't you think it's quite surprising that even when we hear about Puerto Rico and the Taino people, don't you think it's rather surprising and interesting that smallpox again is what is used to wipe out the people, when we know that the Americans put smallpox in the Indians' blankets and disseminated it? These are things that they do.
Yes, yes. But really and truly, though, at the time, there was a very severe oil embargo on Japan.
Yes, there was.
But Japan attacked Pearl Harbor or not?
Yes, there was.
There was a very severe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was doing a lot of damage to Japan. A lot of damage.
Yeah.
And that's part of stuff.
Yeah.
So the same the first time. As a matter of fact, if you want to talk about I'm causing war because of America lied as well about the was it the River of Tompkins or something, the Gulf of Tompkins.
Yeah.
America lied also about the Gulf of Tompkins is to start the Vietnam War.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, look.
And they also lie about the sinking of the Lithuania or something like that to start, I think, the Spanish-American War, something like that. Yeah.
Look, this is why we have got to be very skeptical when the United States wants us to just bow to everything that they want, because history has shown even when you bow to them after they get what they want, as Mr. Makwan was saying, they take a mile. You give them an inch, they take a yard. You give them a yard, they take a mile. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think with World War II, America put one of the ships. I think it would the Lithuania in harm's way, so it can be sunk for them to enter World War II.
Yeah.
Because the American people didn't want, after World War I, they didn't want to go into another World War. And the president at the time put one of the ships, the Lithuania, I think it was, in harm's way, and had it bombed, so that he could have an excuse to enter into World War II.
And that was one of the reasons why they acquired Puerto Rico also, because they wanted Puerto Rico. They used getting Puerto Rico to say that Puerto Rico will be a defense against Cuba, because Cuba was,
the proximity.
Yeah. So that's their history.
Yes.
and human lives was exposed.
Yeah.
It wasn't no robots on those ships.
Yeah.
They were human beings.
They don't care. They don't care. So these are things that our leaders must know when they are thinking of just capitulating just like that. Remember, even after you have capitulated, you get worse treatment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. That is true. But you got to be really evil and that sort of stuff to really say that no fuel can go into Cuba and that sort of stuff or any other country as they did in World War, as they did in World War II and that sort of stuff to Japan and so on and so on. You got to be really evil and wicked to do that.
But Greg, didn't you have to be very evil to come into a region, decide you discover that region, and you wanted gold from that region, and you told the people, the Taino people, mind you, that unless they gave you X amount of gold per day, you would chop off their hand, and you actually chopped off their hand and forced them to carry it around their neck. Isn't that wickedness and evil? And these are historical facts.
Yes, of course.
So these are the things our leaders must remember, you know. And remember, even in the story of Puerto Rico, Africa, we hear about treaties being signed. That is why Peter Tosh says, remember the peace treaty signed in a Kingston city. And what happened to it? These people have been, look, we've got to find ways, just as our foreparents did, to survive. Because that is why we're here today.
Yes, and they signed a lot of peace treaty with the Indians too.
Yeah.
And you see that those peace treaty didn't even the paper that was made.
Yeah.
But in the end though, I'd like to finally say yes. With all due respect, only Jesus Christ can solve our problem, and only He can successfully give us victory and success in everything, including our fight against all who come upon us, including America. But we first have to be on His side, which will be evidence that He is on our side. And with that, we can rest in all comfort of His, knowing that He will bless us in every way according to His word. So, yes. So, thank you. Take care, fellas.
Back to you, Africa.
Thanks. Yeah, so it would be interesting to know what the agenda entails, why our leaders, I understand the urgency of the meeting, and for the fact that our Prime Minister Dr. Terence Jew, is the head of CARICOM for 6 months, I think, speaks volume. And he has to be very clever and shown himself with good advice, because whatever is put on the ink, on the paper, going forward, coming out of this meeting, if they agree on anything, would go down in history as he playing a pivotal role in the regions in a very volatile atmosphere.
Yeah.
Critical for him to really be very clever, have his advisors to come up with the best amicable solutions going forward in unison, as fragmented as we are right now.
Let me ask you this, because you're certain things you follow up much more than I, just like Mr. McMahon. You just said that he's going to be in that position for 6 months, you said?
Yes.
And that is how it alternates?
I'm not quite sure what the duration of time, but I was told that it's 6 months, a 6 month stint that he will be there.
I think this 6 month thing, just hearing it just like that.
Seems like from January to June, but as we speak, so much is on his table, and we wish him well.
This 6 month thing could be a benefit, and it could be a detriment, because let's say, why I say that is this. I feel that if you're going to be in a certain position, I think the tenure should be at least, in my mind, a year.
Or 2.
Yeah, because having said this is what we're going to agree on, at least you have a year to see it being implemented, as opposed to 6 months down the line somebody comes in and turns it upside down. You got,
I want to believe that CARICOM, at that head level, CARICOM's agenda is not solid in local politics, where in our local spheres, here at this present administration will implement something, the next administration comes in and they nullify it and they wipe the state clean. And so I want to believe that at the curriculum level, it's more like a continuum where it goes on irrespective of who holds the office.
I would like to hope so too, because unless
one of the inclination that I can take a little comfort in is that we heard recently that Premier Matt Brantley already, with the proposed planned destiny plan for Nevis, and Olivier Jensen's indication of the window of time, because he did have interviews and he indicated that, it's have a small window of time. He was probably in November or early December, where he indicated at the end of December,
it was to be in December, yes.
and so forth and so forth. Premier Brantley has met that quota of time by whatever he wanted to present. It is over into the hands of the federal government.
Yeah.
And with our Prime Minister speaking on it by establishing a quasi-committee to look into it with stakeholders, even the Rastafarian community, the Bar Association, to name a few, and other NGOs like the Christian Council, the Evangelical Council, and so forth. That speaks volume to me that the Prime Minister is listening to the people, because the outcry and the pushback against the SSZ or the SSE, as it is called by the acronym, was a short-sighted piece of legislation.
Yes.
And it needed to be reviewed. It needed to be solidified. Whether you're going to say, well, repeal, it would be an act of repealing, or an act of amending. It is for the Prime Minister. And we can see the little fallout now within the NIA, according to Mr. Brantley's unsatisfactory remarks, as opposed to the Prime Minister's comment on the quasi-committee that will look at it.
There's a caller waiting, so, yeah. Hello, caller.
Yes, fellas, this is me again. I'm going to try to be very quick. Just remember this. Mr. McMahon said that Venezuela should have elections or something like that.
He said,
so
he says that one of the forms of diplomatic tact that the CARICOM could use is to try to coerce them to say, well, look, think about having elections, and so as to sort of push back and not give the U.S. one of the major excuses that they're using.
In Cuba, in reference to Cuba.
Cuba, sorry, not Venezuela.
Oh, it was in reference to Cuba?
Yes, Cuba.
Mr. McMahon did say
thanks
earlier.
For that correction,
Earlier, Mr.
Venezuela also too.
In conversation he had, he held that point.
Yeah, Venezuela.
Okay, well, let me say this, okay? Let me say, America have overthrown elected governments, okay?
Yeah. That's true.
Election ain't mean nothing to them.
I agree. But
they did it to Mossadegh.
But still
they did it in Ukraine.
Yeah. But still I lean towards what he's saying, because he's thinking more of a diplomatic thing, but what you say again is valid. Look, we're between a rock and a hard place, and we have to do whatever it is that we have to do to survive. Yeah?
But I'm telling you, America have... And not only have they overthrown elected government, they have even messed with people's election to get their desired outcome.
They did that in the Sandinistas during the time when Reagan was in, and that wound up with the Oliver North hearing and all that kind of nonsense.
Yeah. But to be quite honest, they did it to one of the Russian presidents, and the even bosses there who put him in power because they messed with Russia's election.
Yeah.
and that's all. I forget which one of them.
Yeah, they have a
And
history
so
of
on and
that.
so on.
Yeah.
So, and they would, and when they got election years and that, they would overthrow you still, because they have done it more than once.
Yeah.
To elected government, so,
Yeah.
you know. Anyhow, only Jesus Christ in control of everything, and only He is the victor overall. Take care. Thank you.
Yeah. Good point there by Greg, too, because you see the predicament we find ourselves in
Yeah.
Africa.
It's like, I don't know if I can use this expression. They say, if you do or if you don't.
Damned if you do and damned if you don't. Yeah.
But it should be a rude awakening to us, because prior to the 71 or 74 nations list with one of the immigration regulation and new registrants, not for pleasure, not for students, but for those who would want to go there and join with family members in the U.S. Prior to that, we thought when we signed the MOU, we thought, maybe I'm going into the minds of the diplomats who signed on to that, we thought maybe our names would not have been on that list. But lo and behold, our names are there. So that expression, that old adage, will apply to us.
Yeah, damned if you do, damned
So
if you don't.
why would we want to appease them anymore if the MOU is a non-binding, or you have a window of opportunity to escape? Here is it, you're telling us that we must accept these people, not Haitians. We accept everyone, and I'm not convinced that they are who we would accept citizens of CARICOM. I am not convinced.
I don't think so. And this again is why we have all these big question marks to our leaders, because they would know things that we don't know, and they come out and they just put their own spin on it that the United States want them to put on it. And we're none the wiser until down the line now we see the repercussions, and they are either out of power, you know, and whatever, and we're stuck with the consequences.
For the fact that we heard it from Gaston Brown and some other prime minister, Dominica's prime minister, as to what they negotiated on, for the fact that we went there fragmented and not in a unison way, that there was a recipe for the disaster.
And again, even when they came to us, it was about 3 months after they had already sat down and done this. So if it wasn't for someone, I don't remember who it was, that enlightened us, then they came out and they said, yes, we did this. You understand?
It was Gaston Brown spoke on it. And
No,
he
before he did, someone came out. I can't remember who it was.
Okay.
And then he came out after, and then when we backtracked, we realized, okay, yes, he told us, but they had already signed on it, you know, 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is what the nation and the lack of transparency towards its citizens and the feedback from its citizens. In small portion, though, it is welcoming that our Prime Minister has decided to set up a committee to look at the SSZ, even though Premier Mark Brantley is touting that, why divisions should not sit in the back of the bus and all that sort of stuff. We have an inclination, well, I consider myself as a Kitty Visions. So Mark Brantley cannot tell me that I should not have a concern that would negatively affect my sisters and brothers on Nevis. As we, as a federation of two. Yes, I agree with a point he made with other projects that unfold on Syncets, where our voices should be as loud as, but some of them, and I don't say but to minimize those projects. But the one in Nevis seems like it's going to be a state within a state. And the foreign minister, Dr. Denzel Douglas, former prime minister, indicated that if that one that would be unfolded destiny on Nevis, it could cascade into the Whitegate area of St. Kitts. And so we are in this thing together, irrespective of some voices that may not be as boisterous as others when it comes to that matter, because the Destiny Project in Nevis overshadowed, and even I would not say because it overshadowed, we should not have spoken on any project down here, be it the one around Fort Thomas, because that one around Fort Thomas, it worth equal attention, because that is a historical site. Oh, and the St. Christopher Trust is one of those NGOs that were able to sit and discuss this matter as well. And so the St. Christopher Trust as an NGO body that deal with things of that nature, historical nature, should be at the forefront. I think they did send out something on
Look, I don't have any faith in any of these entities, because when I see what we're hearing about what is happening in Fort Thomas, where was the St. Christopher Trust? I hear some of them say, well, we didn't know. But you're in a position to know.
You're in a position to know, I agree.
You understand? So if you don't know, who is to blame? Us or you? So I don't, anyway, we're out of time, so we're going to thank you, Africa, as per usual, and we look forward to having you again. And we now segue into the WinFM's headline news.
Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated